Cześć, witamy w podcaście EduCat. Dzisiaj bierzemy na tapetę studia w Irlandii. Zapraszam serdecznie.
Ireland is a very welcoming and open country. 28% of Ireland's workforce was not born in Ireland, so it just goes to show you how open and welcoming we are as a country. Our particular university is based in Dundalk, which is just 1 hour north of Dublin. Ireland is quite easy to get around as well, so it's quite small, and you're only 2-3 hours from anywhere in Ireland.
According to the UN Human Development Index, it's actually ranked in the top 10 best, safest, happiest places to live in. Why is that?
Well, interesting fact, Iceland is actually the safest country in the world, and Ireland is the second safest country in the world. Maybe it's our geographical location, being on the western side of Europe. But like as Joyce said, I think people come to Ireland because they know they're going to get a really warm welcome. So we have a saying in Ireland, which is Céad Míle Fáilte, which means 100,000 welcomes. We're quite a small country with just over 5 million people, but I think we've a big reputation around the world, and most cities, including Warsaw, where we're sitting right now, every place has an Irish bar.
Indeed, and I think you have a reputation in Poland in general. If we date back to the Euro Championships and Poznań,
Absolutely.
you have a story from them.
Absolutely. In 2012, the European Championships were held in Poland, and the home for Ireland for the 3 weeks was Poznan. So you ended up with a huge influx of Irish people coming into Poznan, and probably a huge influx of Poznan people coming back to Ireland after the championships themselves. So yeah, and interestingly, aside from Irish people, the biggest other nationality living in Ireland is Polish people. So we have over 120,000 Polish people living in Ireland currently.
And in total, from what I read, over 130 different nationalities represented in Ireland across the country. What are the advantages of that if students study in such an international environment? How does that help in their studies and also in the future?
Well, I suppose in the world we're in now, it's very global and international. So, it's great that it is so diverse. And the great thing about Ireland as well at the moment is we actually have full employment in Ireland. So we actually need more students to come to Ireland to study and to work part-time. And most of our students would have part-time jobs as well. So yeah, please come to Ireland and to study.
There's an advert.
Exactly. So I studied abroad when I went to college as well in another country. And it is one of the best opportunities. If you have the opportunity to study in another country, grab it with both hands, because you will never regret it. And it opens up so many more opportunities for you as well.
There's a conclusion. I was gonna leave that till the end, but there's a great sentence to start us off with the podcast. I agree with that absolutely.
It really makes a lot of sense. From a personal perspective, my own little brother works for Google. He's worked for Google in London. He's worked for Google in Cologne in Germany. He currently works for Google in Chicago. So by coming to Ireland, you really do open up some global opportunities, and we're the European headquarters for so many multinational companies.
I think 9 out of the 10 largest companies are headquartered in Ireland or Dublin and the surrounding area.
Well, it's actually 14 of the top 15 pharmaceutical companies are based in Ireland, but much more than that. So, Google, Facebook, Twitter, or X, as Elon likes to call it now. Intel, Hewlett-Packard, the list is endless.
So the opportunities are there, and we'll definitely get to the opportunities. But before we enter the labor market, we need a degree. We need to have some sort of base. We need to have some sort of foundation on the bachelor level or on the master level. So let's get to that. Griffith College, a couple of different campuses, many different programs.
Yes.
What sort of programs do you offer?
Well, we've got 8 different faculties across 3 different campuses. We're the largest private higher education institution in Ireland with over 7,000 students. 120 different nationalities graduated last year. So really students from Botswana to Brazil and Chile to China. So from all corners of the globe. Yes, we do the programs that are kind of generic and popular, like business or law or computer science. But we've got a lot of creative stuff. Digital art, design programs, psychology, which is very popular in Central Europe, and also kind of some really, I suppose, less generic programs: film, TV, and screen media production, creative technologies and digital art, animation, audio and music technology, music production. So
Interior design, I think, as well.
Yeah, well, across the design programs, interior architecture and design, graphic communication design, which again are quite popular here, and fashion design, which is popular everywhere.
Which is popular everywhere. I'm glad you said Central Europe. That's very good. Yeah.
Well,
we're in Central Europe. At the moment, not
Absolutely.
Eastern.
So absolutely, and that's quite important when you're sitting in Poland, is that you don't call it Eastern Europe, because it's actually not. It's Central Europe.
There you go. You
So-
see, if anyone had any doubts, there you go. We sorted it out.
Absolutely, we've done our research before.
You've done your
arriving here.
research, yeah. And Joyce, what about DKIT? Because in the name,
Mhm.
you've got Institute of Technology, but
Exactly.
you don't only offer engineering and tech-based programs.
And not at all. So we've got 4 schools in Dundalk Institute of Technology. So we've got the School of Engineering, we've got the School of Business and Humanities, we've got the School of Health and Science, and we've got the School of Informatics and Creative Arts. We have 5,000 students in total, and again, about 10% would be outside of the EU. But what I would also like to say is, I suppose some of the differences between the Institute of Technologies and the traditional universities would be that, you know, we give you the technical and practical skills to be able to walk into a job when you graduate. So we're very focused on employability. And in about 70% of our programs, we would have a work placement or an internship built into it, okay? But what we do, I suppose, which is a little different to others, is the students don't have to find their work placement themselves. So every student would have a work placement officer who would work with them a year before they go on placement, to work on their CV to make sure it's professional, to work with students to help them realize what they're good at and then how to communicate that effectively. Because whether you like sales or not, you have to sell yourself at an interview.
Absolutely.
And, you know, that's why we're all going to college, to get those jobs. So very focused on when you graduate, you're able to walk into a job. And a lot of the companies use the internship as a kind of a recruitment process. So they keep them on maybe part-time when they finish their internship, or they will hire them when they graduate. So great practical experience is what we give.
And support for the students. I think that's very important, especially during first year, for first year students, where they come from, as we've already established, across the world, from different backgrounds. They need some sort of help and support.
Exactly. And I suppose another thing about Dundalk Institute of Technology, what we're known for, we've got small class sizes. So you're talking about 25 to 30. So it means the students know the lecturers know the students by name. And for me, I think that's gold, because they really want you to succeed.
They care.
Exactly,
They care.
exactly.
You mentioned employability, and we started off on that a little bit. At the moment, the World Economic Forum predicts that roughly 55-60% of current primary school students will have jobs that don't exist yet, that haven't been founded yet. What does that say about the role that universities have to play in today's world in terms of coming up with new programs? You mentioned a lot of practical hands-on programs in design, computer science, interior design, etc. These are programs which really equip students not just with theory but also in practice. Why is that important? What is the role of universities here?
Well, I think you've got to look kind of a bit deeper than that in terms of looking at public education as opposed to private education. So traditionally, public education has been driven by academia, been driven by theory, been driven by research. Private education is very much driven by industry. So our programs have to be revalidated every 5 years to make sure they're current, to make sure they're relevant, and to make sure they're addressing the gaps within the industry that employers are looking for. So if you take that logic into the point that you're just making, 5 years ago, people aren't talking like about AI the way they're talking about AI right now.
Oh, for sure.
So AI and robotics is the big buzz right now. Nobody knows what that will be in 5 years' time. So even in our computer science program, we have a module called Emerging Technologies. 5 years ago, it was cybersecurity was the buzzword. So it's about making sure that you're continuing to address the gaps. And last week, I was in Turin in Italy, and we had a meeting with somebody from the First Bank of Italy. And she is going to tell us the gaps that exist in the banking world, so that we can address those within our business programs to make sure we're providing what industry is looking for.
So there's the direct industry connection.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And for example, in Dundalk, we've had a lot of pharmaceutical plants that have opened up, and we offer, pharmaceutical science and bioscience. And like Ray said, those programs were actually designed by industry with the academics, so that they had the needs for the future. So yes, every 5 years, all the programs are looked to see, are they fit for purpose and what else needs to be added.
So quality control basically is there. Both of you have just wrapped up your participation in EduCat's study abroad fairs in Wrocław, Poznań, and Warsaw. And just to wrap up the conversation about the programs, what do Polish students look for? What were the most popular programs you were asked about, and what was your response to the students' questions?
It was actually quite a mix, but a lot of science, actually. I did have a lot of science.
So a nice match for you then.
Exactly. I was able to talk about, especially the pharmaceutical sector. I've got 4 sisters, and they all work in pharmaceutical all over the world in different companies. Some business, some creative as well. And, what is nice is we try and promote Ireland as a location. So obviously I want students to come to Dundalk Institute of Technology, but sometimes it's just about getting the word out there that, we exist. And when we tell some facts, they're like, oh, I didn't know that. Or for example, when I ask the students, have you ever heard of Ryanair? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, that was founded in Ireland. And, it's just making those connections, and, they can fly there, and that makes a difference, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Joyce says, a real variation of interest across the week. So I suppose some particular programs, psychology, very popular, which we do. Computer science was also come up quite a lot. But in reality, more students will want to study business than any other program. It's just the way of the world. It's the most popular program. It's the best known. And just because Joyce mentioned Ryanair, their uniforms.
I thought you'd come to this, yeah.
Yes, well, their uniforms, their blue and yellow uniforms were designed in 2016 by an Irish lady called Emma Callipy. And in 2015, she graduated from Griffith College as a fashion design student. So thanks for the lead in there, Joyce.
Absolutely.
I did not know that before,
story.
just by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But like what Joyce says, it's Ireland first.
Yeah.
To talk to people about the employment opportunities, to talk to people about the opportunities, and especially for Polish students, there's no visa. You can come and go as you please. You can stay as long as you want. You can work as many hours as you wish, and that's really important, because you can study anywhere in the globe, but you've got to study and live somewhere that you feel comfortable to perform at your maximum ability.
Yeah, and I feel, I don't want to get too much into politics. That's a different podcast. But I guess especially after 2018, 2019, when we all know what happened and what what came into play in a country just south of Ireland, I guess Ireland, the Netherlands, and several other countries really saw a boost in student numbers from the EU. And I don't blame them, because students will look for opportunities where they can get excellent value for the money, right? Where they don't have to spend massive amounts, yet get really, really good quality education. That's exactly what Griffith College and DKIT offers. So really, really good to have you here. So we've talked about the programs, but what do we need to do in order to start studying one of those programs that you all mentioned? So admission requirements, I guess this is always the number one question that comes from students and parents alike. Joyce, let's start with you, because you work with the famous CAO system. What is that, and what can you tell us about it?
So the CAO stands for the Central Application Office. Okay, so whether you're Irish or European and you want to study in Ireland, in any college, university, institution, you must apply through the CAO. Okay, so the CAO will open, you need to apply before the 1st of February, the year that you're graduating. Okay, so as long as you have your application in, and it's based on a point system.
Yeah.
So you need, and every country will have a way to work out your point score, which equates to the Irish Leaving Cert as well. So you apply, and I suppose you get 10 options for a level 7 and a level 8. So in our institution, we have two pathways to entry, okay? One is a 3-year ordinary bachelor's degree, and the other is a 4-year honours bachelor's degree, okay? And that's called a level 8. And in Ireland, the reason why you would need a level 8 is if you want to do a master's, it's a level 9, so it's 4 plus 1. And in a lot of places in Europe, it's 3 plus 2. So I just wanted to
Here, for
explain that.
example, in Poland, it's 3 plus 2.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yes. So again, what we do is the reason why there's a level 7 as well and a level 8 is, we take away the barriers to entry. So the Irish government believes that everybody has a right to be educated. And, just because you don't get, the highest points doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to, to attend college and educate yourself. So, as I said, we have two pathways in. So, what else can I say about the CAO? I mean, you have you sent students through the CAO yourself?
Not me
And how did
personally,
you
but
find
my
it?
colleagues have.
Yes. But I suppose the thing about the CAO is in Ireland, they the Leaving Cert sit their exams in June,
Yeah.
okay? So their results come out in the middle of August. And then a week later is when the CAO sends out all the
Decisions.
Exactly, all the offer letters. So I'd love to be able to give students an offer letter directly, but this is the way it works in Ireland and it goes through the system. And I know we will get on to accommodation later, but what we do for our EU students is if they know that they want to come to Ireland to study, okay, they can put a deposit on accommodation during the summer so that they are not competing for the same accommodation that all the Irish are looking for in September. Because you've got you've only got a short window, like 2 weeks, to get to your country, to get the accommodation and to start college. So, but we will help our Polish students with that.
And so will we.
Fantastic.
We're there to help. So we have CEO, but that's not the only way you can apply to universities in Ireland. Griffith College is a slightly different system.
Well, yeah, in terms of coming back to public education against private education, obviously with the public universities, CAO is really the only option for EU students. With us, students can absolutely apply through CAO if they wish, but you can also apply directly to Griffith College, and you can get an offer within 72 hours. The reason I asked for 72 hours is right now I'm sitting in a radio station in Warsaw, so I'm not looking at applications. So say give me 72 hours to turn your application into an offer. The advantage of this is it means that parents, students can make their plans much earlier. So instead of waiting, and if I take off my Griffith College hat and put on my father hat just for a moment, my daughter was applying to university 3 years ago, and we have to book her accommodation not knowing what university she's going to get accepted to. And that's a challenge. If that's a challenge for an Irish person who understands the system, it can be even more challenging for somebody from another country who doesn't get it, can't get any feedback on their offer, and can't book accommodation, especially if you're looking at different cities. And then when you book flights with famous Ryanair, the later you book them, the more expensive they're going to be. So,
by the way, today's podcast is not sponsored by Ryanair.
I'm pretty sure he wouldn't pay for it anyway.
No. Well, I guess it all really comes down to then effective planning and time management. I think both are to be done. I mean, the CEO is. It's not something that cannot be done, and you should completely forfeit thinking about public universities in Ireland. But I think it really comes down to making sure you have a plan in place, making sure you can somehow maneuver around the deadlines and the timeframes. And also what I always advise students who come to us is to maximize your options, right? So try to have an idea what it is you want to study, first of all, then try to find a country which specializes in that. And as we've already agreed upon, Ireland specializes in quite a few different disciplines. And then try to match that with the university or universities to basically maximize the options and have various possibilities later on. And in terms of admissions, what sort of documents are required?
So
And
yes.
a follow up. And does that differ between public, private, or is it more or less the same?
Well, for the CAO, it is just based on your matura. or in Ireland on your leaving cert. So everybody is, I suppose, just examined off of their, grades. So you don't need to do a letter or take any entrance exams or anything like that. So it's just based on your grades. So you make the application through the CAO before the 1st of February of the year you're graduating. And then when you get your exam results, you send the documents to the CAO with the translation as well. Okay. So you do need obviously a level of English as well, but I know any Polish student that I have met, their English is absolutely
And you've met
perfect.
hundreds of them over the past couple of days.
Exactly. And so B2, like, or IELTS 5.5 or 6.0 is what they need, or an equivalent in their matura as well. So I've never come across a Polish who had any issue with their English, which is
There
great.
you go. Good for us. What about CVs, motivation letters? Because that is something really popular in the Netherlands. You have personal statements in the UK. You have essays in the US. You also do letters in Danish universities. How does that look in Ireland?
Well, obviously, I can only speak for Griffith College. We don't look for them.
Yep.
Personally, I think there's an issue with them. And this is purely a personal point of view, that if I ask any student for a motivational letter or a statement of purpose, the first thing they're probably going to do is ask their parents or their student counsellor or their agent
Speaking of AI.
or ChatGPT. What do you think I should put in this letter? What will get me accepted? So sometimes it's not an entirely true reflection of the student in front of you. So we are working off literally Matura, or also in Poland, which is quite popular, IB, A-levels. So, students can apply with their high school documents. And then depending on the program, there might be a slightly different entry requirement. So for design programs, you do require a portfolio. For music or animation or creative technologies, you do require a faculty interview. For law and journalism, it's a slightly higher English language requirement. So always speak to the university, or in this case, speak to EduCat, because Adam's pretty knowledgeable in this field too.
I try to be.
But speak to somebody who's got the knowledge to make sure you're providing the right documentation for the program you're most interested in.
And I guess what you mentioned, with portfolios for certain design programs, different English requirements, it's all to ensure that the classroom that is later made up of these students is a classroom made of people who will be able to work well with one another, bearing in mind, of course, they come from across the world, very different education systems, very different backgrounds, and you need to make it work in a certain way. So you need to have these certain, minimum entry requirements, basically, that some universities, most universities operate on.
Well, to start any race, you've got to start at the start.
Yeah, there's a thought for the day. So we are at the stage where we've sent in the application, and we're ready to head to Ireland. Got our suitcases packed, got our toothbrushes and everything, laptop, everything's done. We need to live somewhere. How does that work?
Well, I think all over Ireland, and many countries, there is a bit of pressure on accommodation. And certainly, it's the one piece of advice I give to students, whether you want to study in Madrid or Rome or Paris or London or Dublin, or Dundalk, sort out your accommodation, okay? It's one of the biggest kind of topics. Obviously, the Netherlands, have had well-documented issues with their accommodation. We're quite fortunate at Griffith College to be in the position to offer EU students guaranteed accommodation on campus. So as I joke with students, if you're clever enough, you can probably run a zip wire from your accommodation straight into your classroom. And I know Joyce will talk about the DKIT thing, but really, I can't stress this enough. Get your accommodation sorted early. Last year we had about 1,800 international students starting at Griffith College, and everybody got a bed. But some people ended up with a longer commute because they left it late. And the longer you leave it, that's the reality. We can't meet everybody's demands if they're not booking early. So
plan early.
Book it early, plan early,
It's time management.
Absolutely, that's the key.
Yeah.
And Joyce.
How does a typical, do follow up on that, and then I'll add on another question. I do that quite often. I do apologize, but lots to get through. How does typical student accommodation look like? Is it an apartment? Is it a room? Is it shared? Is it
Mhm.
individual? What
Yeah.
can you tell us?
So there's different types of accommodation, but we have accommodation in DKIT both on campus and very close to the campus. So in terms of cost, it would range anywhere from 400 to €700 a month, okay? You would probably pay double that anywhere else in Ireland. So we're very fortunate in DKIT that we actually have accommodation for our students. So the basic accommodation, yes, would start off at €400 a month, and that would be a shared apartment between four people, okay? So 2 bedrooms and whatnot. And then it would go up to €750 for a single room ensuite in a house, okay? So for those that can afford that as well. So 400 to €700 would cover the accommodation, whereas I think in some places you would be paying at least double that, and that's if you could find accommodation.
Yeah, I know it's a big issue. I
Mhm.
think across Europe, across the continent, really,
Mhm.
including here in Poland. In Poland, we've recently seen a big boost in privately owned student accommodation. So what we have is universities do own their own accommodations, what we call academics. However, there's nowhere near enough spots. So private investors are now building accommodation solely for students, and that's getting an increase in interest.
Same in Dublin. So we have, obviously, as I mentioned, we've guaranteed accommodation for EU students on campus, but we've a range of off-campus accommodations as well. Some of them are purpose-built student accommodation blocks. Then you've private rent, scenario as well, and then homestay. So we can arrange homestay where somebody, it's quite popular, especially for younger girls, that they feel safe, they feel secure. They get a host mom, breakfast in the morning, dinner in the evening, and that comfort as well for a father. Again, taking my Griffith College hat off and putting my father hat on. I don't live in Dublin. So when my daughter was going to university, for the comfort for me to know that she's safe, she's secure, somebody's looking after her, and she's eating.
Yeah,
That's
important.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And stuff like that is super important. And even with Griffith on campus, we've got 24-hour security. People can't access the campus after 11 p.m. Because we do have evening classes and things like that as well, unless they've got their student ID. And it comes back to that Ireland being a safe place.
Mm. So we're there in Ireland now. We've got our accommodation sorted. A couple of first weeks of classes have started. But I guess parents and students are watching us listening to us at the moment, and parents will be very interested in what we've already talked about. So requirements, programs, employability, etc. Students, on the other hand, will also be very interested in student life.
Well, student life is a lot. I'll tell you what our students do. So
Yeah.
obviously they come to class, but also a lot of them will have part-time jobs as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Speaking
So
of employability, which we
exactly.
mentioned earlier.
So Ireland's minimum wage has increased again to 13.50 an hour.
Euros. Let's just
Yes,
add. Not
exactly.
Polish
Sorry.
zlotys,
Yes, so
euros.
13.50 an hour. We actually have full employment in Ireland, so we need more students to come to study and to work part-time. But apart from that, in DKIT, we've got over 60 sports clubs and societies that they can join, everything from like fencing and archery. But because of our size and we're quite small and we're agile, if there is something that a student is interested in that doesn't exist, they can start their own club, okay? And then obviously they can use all the facilities. We have one of the best gyms. Every time I show the students the picture of our gym, everybody goes, wow. We've got swimming pool, we've got 2 jacuzzis, we've got a steam room. So, it's
You sold me
important.
on the jacuzzi. Forget the engineering programs.
Okay.
I'm sold on the jacuzzi.
Yes. So, um, yeah, student life is fantastic. I'd love to be a student again myself. Who wouldn't, Now, what I like to say about DKIT is now we've no bar on campus, but we've 50 bars in the town.
There you go. You see.
Okay, so again, it just means that it's very safe and a place, and it's good for parents to know that as well. But yeah, as well, we're located only 1 hour north of Dublin. Okay, and what I like DKIT and Dundalk is, it's like half the price maybe of living, in a big city. However, it's only an hour away. So there are buses and trains that go to outside right outside the campus door every hour up to Dublin and back again from 5:30 in the morning to midnight. So I meet my friends there in Dublin, but I live in Dundalk. So as well, we have a great nightlife. Everybody knows Ireland like their pubs and their traditional music. So there's always somewhere to go and somewhere to have fun. And I met a lot of students who like the music and performing arts, and I tell them Dundalk is the perfect place. We also had a student who actually worked on a project for new students coming in. It's called Stepping Out in Dundalk, and it's just for new students that are coming. It kind of tells them all the basic information, where to go for maybe the good food, or cheap food, or where you get your duvets, or things like that. So there's student life. It's
It's
wonderful.
fantastic.
Exactly.
I think one word to describe it is fantastic and
Yes.
broad, I think.
Uh-huh.
Well,
That really does it.
I think in Dublin there's probably more than 50 bars
Yeah,
uh,
I would
for,
assume so,
Exactly.
yeah.
for students to frequent. But, echoing what Joyce said, Ireland is known as being a very warm place. Students are super resourceful. So
Yeah.
they will find the place for cheap electronics, cheaper food, 2-for-1 drinks.
Especially Polish students. Sorry to interrupt, but especially Polish students are resourceful.
But like 2-for-1 drinks on a Thursday night, and I think Ireland has such a rich culture around the world, and not just in hospitality or socializing, music, sports. We're known as the land of saints and scholars, so there's a rich history with the likes of Yeats and Kavanagh and Oscar Wilde, Seamus Heaney. So literally, people come to Ireland for the experience. And one of the things, while we're based in Dublin, I always encourage people, get out of the capital city, see the rest of the country. At Griffith, we subsidise those things. So we might do, surfing lessons in Lahinch. And normally that should cost maybe €800 for transport and accommodation. We say to the students, you pay €100 and Griffith College will pay the rest.
Fantastic.
So it's a great chance to network, to make new friends from different nationalities and embrace the culture. If I come to Poland and I don't eat pierogi, how am I going to immerse myself in Polish culture? Or maybe sample 1 or 2 cherry vodkas along the way.
Yeah.
But the whole point is, the quicker you immerse yourself in the local culture, the more comfortable you will feel.
For sure. Yeah.
And we also have a pastoral care coordinator who arranges trips as well, like that, for hiking and to get out, for students, especially if people are struggling to meet people, or, and that is a great way as well
good.
yeah.
I mean, after having heard you say all of these things about the student life, about the programs, employability, accommodation, and everything, it is no surprise. It's a statistic I recently found. 92% of students highlight they are 100% satisfied with their studies in Ireland. And I feel, having listened to both of you today, it comes to absolutely no surprise. Because if I were a student, I'd probably, I'm sold. Not just on the jacuzzi, not just on the Ryanair, but on other elements as well. So just to round off, what is one piece of advice you'd give to a current Polish secondary school student who's thinking about studying abroad, studying in Ireland specifically? What's one piece of advice Joyce would give?
Just do it.
Just do it.
You'll never regret it. It opens up so many more opportunities for you. And, just spending time in another country, you become educated naturally.
Oh, for sure. And what piece of advice would Ray give?
I think the main piece of advice I would give to anybody is there's still a huge value in an English-speaking education. For companies, like right now, more and more companies are looking for things like equality, diversity, inclusion, as are universities too. And I think if you're an employer and somebody has studied abroad, they can add a lot more value to your company, from the very beginning, than somebody who's never traveled or never experienced different cultures. So I think for kids, you will really learn to grow. And like I actually really like what Joyce said. Just do it.
I think it's the best conclusion we can.
I know Nike probably have a
Nike,
patent.
yeah.
They probably have it patented, but it's still a great
Again,
piece of advice.
it's not this podcast is not sponsored by Ryanair or Nike, as we just figured out.
It's sponsored by EduCat.
It's sponsored by EduCat,
Yes.
indeed.
Yeah.
Anyway, Joyce, Ray, it's been great to have you here. Thank you very much for chatting to us. Well, to them, I should say. About Ireland, and to anyone who is considering studying in Ireland, get in touch with us, get in touch with Ray or Joyce directly. We'll help you throughout the whole journey from planning the application, choosing the degree, all the way to assisting you with finding accommodation. So educat.study is the website to go, and Joyce and Ray are the people to get in touch with, and myself, of course. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Adam.
Dziękuję.
Dziękuję.